Go. We're live back again. And the purpose of this going live, like I'd mentioned 2 days ago, that I was going to start coming up live and welcome everyone who wants to talk about money. I'm gonna be available all the time. This is something that I again started selfishly, and I wanted to make sure that I learn about money from everyone there. Start a community where we can talk about money in a very unofficial state. I know everyone has their own ways of understanding money, and my way hasn't been working, does not always work. As of now, I've gone through a certain journey, financial journey, where call it about finances, financial literacy, financial therapy, budgeting, expense, trying to, cautiously spend. I've done it all, and I've studied it all, and it's great. But one thing about doing independent, studying or trying to become or develop by self is there is always that lack of audience, where by audience I mean it's as adults it's so hard to tell someone, come with me, let's start studying. Sometimes we have very different interests, and that's fine, in my opinion. But anyway, I guess all this to say that I'm trying to look for the community, find people who have similar interests. The financial YouTube is a big thing. Finance YouTube is amazing. You could pick up very many videos from there, and uh, I've watched many, but sometimes it's hard. I mean, it's easy to learn from those videos, but sometimes it's hard to take that message home. I mean, it's one thing when you find someone who has earned a lot of money, uh, telling you where you can start. I mean, what do those steps even look like? That's why I thought, let me channel my YouTube into a discussion board, if you may, where I don't know, I can get there, I can upload videos, I can go live, talk about money. I mean, anyone who has, any interest in discussing, they don't have to be, I mean, I would love to have experts here coming and discussing finances, but we don't have to have experts. I mean, given everyone practices, everyone spends, everyone probably, has a little bit, even $1 in their savings. I mean, that's enough to qualify you to come and have a discussion. Now, with that said, yesterday I did discuss about personal budgeting. I also explained a little bit about my personal website that I designed purposely for financial, awareness, for financial literacy. Today I was thinking about discussing a little bit about expenses. What do hello, hey, hi. Um, I was trying to discuss a little bit about how do you yesterday I spoke about budgeting, but today is more of how do you track your expenses. It's very easy. Now, my on the reason as why I started even thinking about how to go about my tracking my expenses was because I realized that, hold up, every time I go on my bank account app, I see all the expenses that I've spent. Like, for example, if I wanted to check what I spent 5 months ago on whatever I spent, the bank has the record of that. And I think it's unfair to myself if I let the bank track these things for me and I don't track them for myself. Now, I started about 5 years ago to track every time I use my debit card, my credit card, my Apple Pay, my Samsung Pay, my Cash, uh, Cash App, wherever I happen to spend money, I have a written record. Actually, I started by handwriting, but this time round I started. I mean, I've been doing an Excel, and also after 4 years, I embedded in an app not my own, but I use the apps on the market to track. Oh, how old am I? Hello, I'm 28. Yes. But yes, I started tracking. I started manually by writing everything. And I'm talking about before I spent, I asked myself a few questions. Do I need to spend on this? Do I need to, is this very uh helpful? Will I regret it? Like sometimes I try sit down for about 2 days if there is something that I want and I want to buy. I sit with it for a good amount of days, and this doesn't work for needs, because when you need it, you need to spend now. But if you don't need it, you definitely do not spend on it, more especially if you want. What's the topic today? For the topic today, I'm talking about expenses. So yesterday I did record a live video where I was talking about budgeting, and today I wanted to just specifically talk about expenses. I find out that as I'm going through this journey myself, where I wouldn't call myself a young adult anymore. I mean, I'm 28, so meaning I'm approaching to 30. But I've done the same mistake over and over again, and I kid you not. At the end of every month, I'm always like, what happened? Even after tracking and limiting my spending, I still ask myself, why exactly do I have this little saved, or why did I spend on for example, gas twice? Like, why did I fill up my tank and then 3 days later filled again my tank? And I live in the northeastern region of the United States. It's not cheap here to fill up your car. So I realized that this cannot be only my weakness, most especially after trying to look for a solution. I go on YouTube, I look into people who have money trying to build wealth, and there is so much that is within that arena. Like sometimes I go looking for an answer and I come back confused. So I was like, so by now I went through college, I guess, but I didn't study much about finances. I have decided to start studying about finances now, a few years after I graduated, that it's overwhelming. Anyway, expenses. Why is that important altogether, in my opinion, to track? Because if you don't, I usually explain it to my friends this way: if you don't sleep, you have a problem. Now, if you oversleep, you also have a problem. So, too much sleep is a problem, no sleep is a problem. Let's bring that to finances. No spending, there is a problem. Well, I would rather go with no spending than too much spending. Now, just like sleep, spending has to have a sweet spot, at least according to independent research. Every time I look into stuff, I realize that sleep has to have, just like sleep and how it needs a sweet spot, spending does need a sweet spot. And this one ties back to yesterday's topic, which is budgeting. Now, spending, budgeting go hand in hand. I know when you hear that word, it just sounds like common sense. Spending, of course, spending, common sense. But what challenges the spending itself is if you are not planned, if you are spending without planning, if you're not asking yourself questions regarding your spending. uh Let me put it plainly: you want to spend on either needs or wants. At least that's how I classify things throughout the month when I'm spending. By needs, your rent, your children's needs, your I would say transportation. Those are needs. They have to be done for you to keep earning what you earn. Now, wants include things that every time you question, can I live without this? And the answer is yes, I can live without it. That's a want. Most often they're wants. Someone, I remember, because I work in education, one of my students was asking me, how about if I want a house, is that a want or a need? It was one of those silly questions, and I looked at it like, oh, as an adult, actually, I never thought about it. To a certain extent, housing can be a want too. You know, for example, if you can afford rent for 800, right, and you decide to instead go for rent for 1600, that difference between 800 and 1600 becomes a want. Like, you can live peacefully, you can live nicely in an 800 apartment, but because that 800 apartment is not to your liking, you go for 1600. Now, the way I like seeing that is the difference between 800 and 1600 is going every month. Like, 800 of difference is going every month, and if you multiply 8 times 12, you are quickly getting into 9,800 of, 9,200 of difference. That's how much you probably could be saving if at all you garnished or respected that difference between those two. So again, wants and needs are very tied to spending. And what we often lack as adults, or as, I guess, human beings, is that personal checks and balance. It's you questioning, do I need this, do I not need that? I guess the psychology of it that I've come to learn is, as humans, we just don't know. We easily get detached. For example, if I spent $200 2 days ago, that has nothing to do with me spending the next 200 now, because often, at least what I've learned is, if you don't put it down, it doesn't exist. If you spent it a little while ago, it doesn't kind of exist. So that's it there for you. So spending and budgeting, so far that's where we are. Those two are things that you have to question at the daily basic. Did I budget earlier this month? And when you budget, just like the way we spoke, I spoke yesterday, try adjust. Don't be too strict on your budget. The budget, again, this is just to remind, a budget is a summary of what you want to do, how you want to allocate your money throughout the week, throughout the month or 1 year. I mean, I don't know if really people budget for a year. I haven't done that myself, but I usually budget for a month. So if your income, in other words, if your income is X, make sure that when you are budgeting your income, every single dollar of that income is allocated to something in your budget. For example, the example that I gave yesterday, if I earn $1,000 in my budget, each one of these $1,000 has to be allocated to something. That way I leave myself not enough room, most especially depending on where I am with my life and my earning. I want to make sure at least that I don't spend. I realize that it works for me. I would put 200 here, 300 there, 400 there, 100 here, 50 there, 70 there. And by the end of the budget, I limit myself. When it hits 1,000, that means there is no zero wasted, there is no zero spent. That's the first part of the step. Now, moving forward, you have to make sure as you are going through that month, every single dollar is accounted for. I know to many people who have been popping in and out, this video I will be uploading it to YouTube, just in case you wanted to go and see what I was talking about. But today's topic was about personal, I would say, spending, or when it comes to spending in general. And that's what I wanted to shed a light on here at Your Financial Buddy, where my goal is to work with all of you through understanding, I guess, being financially literate. I have been very strict to my finances ever since high school, ever since I realized that money is earned and money can be spent. I started thinking about how to keep some for myself on what I earned. But again, have I been very successful at that? Of course not. but I plan to improve with everyone as usual. Let me try create my own path to wealth, and I can have some people with me. Let's have a common understanding. I like when people come here and ask questions, and sometimes those questions do make me think in a different way and have a conversation geared in a certain way. So yes, we were talking about spending, and yes, I hope I did tackle a few of the stuff within the 15 minutes that I've been live as of now. But for those who have any questions regarding spending, who want to shed some light on some parts of spending, who want to teach me a little bit about spending, I am always welcome to learn. And again, that's, I guess, the human way. So thank you so much for tuning in. And again, today it was about spending. We've already spoken about budgeting and how those two are connected. Spending, budgeting, the same. They are all supposed to be tied to your income and your income only. And by income, it doesn't have to be from your work, just work. It could be any other finances that come to your life. And budgeting has to be very clear. It has to be easy to read. Every amount has to be allocated to something, and that something has to be meaningful in a certain way. When you want things, question yourself: do I want this? Would this money that I would keep from not spending here help me some other places? And that's spending. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate everyone who tuned in and those who asked questions. I am appreciative. Okay. Bye.